and Head of the Department of Medicine, AVMCH, a PG Coordinator and Member, Institutional Research Committee. Welcome all to this day 4 of the Research Methodology Workshop. We have two eminent speakers for today's session. Professor Amol Dongre, Steps in Protocol Development. Sir is Professor Community Medicine, PSMC, Gujarat. And our critical appraisal of journal article by our Dean, Professor P.F. Kotur. And it will be followed by evaluation of the pre-test by Professor Vishnu Bhatt, Director Research, AVMC. Now I invite Dr. Aarti for the rapporteur's report. Dr. Aarti?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Rapporteur's report for day 3, research methodology workshop. The first presentation was by Dr. V.N. Mahalakshmi on selecting appropriate research design for our research questions. So how to choose a research design, that was her topic. And she said about first, about considering, consideration that we should keep before choosing a research question. And with the quotes, she started, the best is the enemy of the good. That is, we have to look into the feasibility and then what is a good question, and the question is important, she went about saying. She also told us what is a proper research design means, or study design means. And in simple, what I took it is it's a blueprint, how we are going to work about with it, and what is the plan that I have for it, and what is the strategy that I have for it. And she also gave us a nice example of CABG, in which stents were being placed continuously, coronary trap bypass grafts and stents were being continuously placed, and later the research showed that convention is it's the better one. And that she told it for where she said though there are theories, and theories are very nice, we can just bridge over a block, but sometimes the ugly fact becomes the evidence, and that's what we are supposed to be into it. And she went in to tell about the PICOTS, that is the population, intervention, comparison, outcome type of question, and the study design. And then we started matching our research questions. And as we matched our research questions, we were also highlighted about the hierarchy of evidence that we have to keep in mind. And when we are matching, the first thing that becomes the priority is the question. And the question should take into consideration the outcome and the evidence that it's going to produce. And the one more thing that took me up is if you're going to spend 6 months into a research, why not do a good research? So if the question is correct, then our designs becomes good and tested properly. So that's what. And ma'am finished us with 3 nice take-home messages. So to highlight the take-home messages, research design is a function of question and it's not a choice. And if you want an unbiased result, matching the design to the question is important, because we cannot go about applying any design to any study, though a question can have multiple design, not any for any. And we have to take outcome and time frame into consideration. Our next section was on sampling. And for sampling, we had Dr. Madangi, DC Madangi, Dr. DC Madangi, and ma'am went about to say from what is sampling, that is from a big to a small if we are extracting. And most important she highlighted is that it should be predefined. That's the most important part. The next she said is the need for sampling. Why do we need sampling? She highlighted. And to say a few of why do we need sampling is, one is the budget, the resources, particularly she highlighted on the human resources also. So human resource also becomes an important, she said. And the accuracy of the data, the intensive and exhaustive data, those all we have to consider when we see about the need for sampling, she said. Next, the sampling method, ma'am went into the probability type of sampling and the non-probability type of sampling. And she went about explaining each of the probability sampling methods as simple random sampling, cluster random sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified random sampling she went into. And then in non-probability, she said when we have an hypothesis and we want to do an exploratory research and our budget and time is constrained, then we go in for a non-probability sampling. And there she explained to us about a conventional type of sampling and quota sampling. So those and snowball type of sampling, and these all we saw about the sampling methods and types of sampling. So that was our first two session. Ma'am?
Thank you, Dr. Aarti. Now I invite
Yes.
Dr. Ramya, Assistant Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology Department, to continue with the rapporteur report on questionnaire design and validation. Dr. Ramya, please.
Good afternoon, all. So the third session was regarding the questionnaire validation of questionnaire or scale, which was done by Dr. Pankaj P. Shah, who was Professor and Head Department of Community Medicine in SRMC. Sir went with how the questionnaire should be matching with the objective. How the objective becomes very important was his first very much important point, and how it should very much match with the objective, the questionnaire. Then how the questionnaire will lead, like whether the questionnaire should be our own or someone else. So if it is someone else, then how should we go for the literature search, and whether it should be in the whether it is present in our same language, and it is depending on our culture. So all these should be sorted out in case of literature search. That is, these are all will be related in case of when the questionnaire is related to abstract sign. When the questionnaire is very specific or something like yes or no questions, doesn't requires much validation. But if we are going for a questionnaire which requires the abstract sign, it requires validation, and it requires the literature review. So if for in the literature review, if we want to translate for a questionnaire, if it is present in some other language to our own language, then that will require validation. So after if someone is wanting to prepare questionnaire, their own questionnaire, they should also get their opinion from experts. So at the beginning, we should start with more number of questions. So after getting more number of questions, we should go for even cognitive interview, is what sir told. Like after cognitive interviewing, we will shortlist our question. So from that, again, expert opinion should be sort of. So then comes your reliability and its types. Sir explained well about that. Then regarding the validity, how it is valid and its type. Then how it can be implemented following factorial analysis, and how it is implemented in our clinical use and application is what Sir has well told in that session. Sir has explained very well with the single slide only all these explanation, and it was very good and informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramya. Now we'll move on to the session. The first, steps in protocol development by Professor Amol Dongre. Sir is currently the head department of extension program, SPASH, and professor in community medicine and medical education, PSMC Medical College, Gujarat. Sir was formerly working as professor and head of the Department of Community Medicine and Dean Research at Sri Manakula Vinayagar Medical College and Hospital, Pondicherry. As International Fellowship in Medical Education, he completed Masters in Health Professions Education from the Keele University in the UK. He is working as a FAMER regional faculty in 2 regional centers, PSG Coimbatore and Manipal University. Over to you, sir. We'll be happy to listen to you. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, madam. Good afternoon. And thank you for giving such an elaborate introduction. Right. Thank you very much. And I think most of the participants, as I was listening to the recap of the previous session, it seems they have already gone through a lot of detailed information on the topic. And this session on steps in protocol development is going to bring all these things together. And my job will be very easy to do that. So let me put my slides first. And is it clearly seen on the screen? Please give me feedback.
Yes, sir. Sir.
Right. So I'm going to talk about protocol development. What are the steps in protocol development? And my background is community medicine and demography and community medicine. and my background will have tremendous influence in the way we develop protocol. So you have to see this information in the light of my background. Right? So the purpose of this session is to take you through the steps in research process. I'm sure you must be aware of it by this time, but what I'm going to do is that I'm going to link the steps in research process with the steps in protocol development. And then finally, I'll be sharing some practical tips we have to keep in mind when we are working on our protocol, right? In between, if you have any question, you're welcome, or you keep your questions ready. And when my session is done, I'll invite you to ask those questions. So what is
video? No, I don't want. Not there.
so it is a document which provides the plan of your study. What is your intention? And what is your plan to achieve that intention? Has to clearly come.
Sir, voice also you don't want to talk, no?
Right. And second is the second point that you have to keep in mind is to make sure that your study plan is in alignment with your research question or objective or your purpose statement. And this alignment is a tricky job. You have to be very careful throughout the process when you develop your protocol, right? And the third thing is to see the content under these headings, because you have to put the content under those headings and explicitly state what are the steps that you are going to take and what kind of processes are you going to make sure that you achieve that step, right? So let me put this first slide and about on the research process. In this research process, we start thinking about carrying out any research when we face any issue or any problem that may be there in our educational setting, that may be there in clinical setting. We encounter some problem, some controversy, some issue, and then we want to solve that problem. And solving that problem in a scientific manner, by scientific manner I mean that we collect systematic data around that problem, we analyze it, we interpret it, and then we find a solution to it. That is called as scientific process. And that scientific way of solving the problem involves all these systematic steps, right? So research is all about solving the problem in a systematic and in a scientific manner. But the perfect beginning of any research is a problem. You have to have a problem in hand. Second, once you have a problem in hand, you may match that problem with your clinical experience. You can speak to your peers to check whether they also face the same problem and how do they perceive it. And the third way is to do the literature search and find out, do other peers, do the peers in other institution, other country encounter it in a similar way? And what are the ways they use to solve it? And do I have some another way to solve that? And if that is so, then whatever way I have chosen to solve that problem, is that scientific? So you have to take it through the whole scientific process of data collection, analysis, interpretation. So we do a literature search to do the validation of our understanding with other peers in the field. And once we have done the review of literature, we refine the research question and make it more focused. And that's the purpose, indeed. And once we have a research question, then we ask ourselves the next question, that if this is my research question, then what method would be better? Is it quantitative, or is it qualitative, or is it a mixed method that I should be using to answer my research question? Please make sure that your research question is in alignment with the methods that you have chosen. And I see a big gap here. Many a times they have a research question in hand, but the methods that they choose are not in alignment with the question that they have. Then you have to think about design in more detail, that if I'm going to do a quantitative method, and if you think that the quantitative methods are the best one to solve the problem, then which quantitative method are you going to choose? You have plenty of options for it. Right from experimental study to descriptive research, you have all variety of options for that. If you have chosen a qualitative approach, similarly in qualitative approach, you have right from descriptive to interpretative approach. You have to choose option in that. If you go for mixed method, then you have 12 options for it. Which variant of mixed method do you think is appropriate for your research question? And once you make a decision about it, then you have to think about other steps. Believe me, this is really very difficult step when you do selection of methods for your research question, right? But this is a difficult step only for the novice researcher, but for seasoned and experienced researcher, for them it's a quite easy step to go ahead. Whatever method you choose, let it be quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method, you have to think about sample size and sampling, instrument for data collection. And I'm sure you must have learned by this time that this instrument has to be valid and reliable. Then you have to go for data collection, analysis and interpretation. And then finally, when we write a report, we write discussion, conclusions, limitations, and directions. Now, after going through all these steps in research, I have a question for you. If you can write down in chat box, I would be glad. Among all of this that you have seen here, which one do you think is most difficult thing to have in hand? Can you write down in chat box, few of you? You need not match with my response. You just write down which step do you think is going to be the most crucial, most difficult, and you need to be careful for it. So any responses from you? Just I'll take one response.
Research question,
Yes, okay.
instruments, protocol, research design, protocol, again research question.
Right. Thank you, madam. Thank you for doing that, capturing for me. That's wonderful. But for me, with my experience, I find the most difficult step for me is to have a research problem in hand. Because you need an eye to see that problem. You need a kind of wording to identify that problem. So as you become more experienced, you will find other steps more easy as compared to getting a problem in hand. But I do agree with what you have been mentioning, that they can be tricky parts. We go for it. When we start thinking about protocol development, we have to think about a title. What can be the title of my study? What I'm going to write in introduction? What kind of review is important? And then what are going to be your material and methods, such as what setting you write. And then one thing which we don't write in protocol, and I think that the research protocol is incomplete without writing that clearly, is what are the philosophical assumptions you have. All research, let it be quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods, they all are based on philosophical assumptions, and we have to be explicitly clear about our philosophical assumptions because they guide your research. And then we have to think about study design, sample size and sampling, then data collection. Go for data collection. How are you going to collect the data? And then what is your analysis plan? And then your plan to get clearance from research and Islamic, and you have to start thinking about what are the documents that you're going to attach with your protocol. If you are using any copyright protected questionnaire, then do you attach permission from the authors when you submit your protocol? if you are planning to do some studies in some institutions, organization, you have to attach letters of permissions to access sample in that particular institution or in that occupational setting. You have to also attach the questionnaire, the data extraction form, and consent form in both English and in local language, which your participant should understand. Now we are going to see the small little details of each of these. When you develop protocol, what all you should have in the title, and what you should be thinking when you write under that title. So when it comes to title, what do you think? What are your suggestions? Can you write on in chat box? What are your suggestions? I mean, when you choose a title for your study, what kind of title would you like to have? And what are the rules that you have to follow for making a title? There are plenty of things people mention about it. We'll be seeing it. But are you aware that how to put a title for anything that we do? Write down in chat box if you have some responses about it. Yeah, PICO should be there, specific to objective, perfect. And primary objective to be captured, perfect. Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, that's true. When we write a title, I just use this rule that we try to keep it some 8 to 12 words. And we try to answer this question. It may not be possible for all. Yeah, not more than 15 words. Okay, just we have to keep it small. What, when, where. But there are plenty of different ways people do when they write a title. And this is one title. When you are doing a mixed method study, this is the way that we write a title, right? Postmenopausal bleeding among rural women in Tamil Nadu, India, mixed method study. Some people try to put their title in this way. They put it in a question form. Why tuberculosis patient under RNTCP delaying healthcare seeking? The title should arouse interest among readers. A mixed method study, research from Wardha district, Maharashtra. And the other way is that, does an appreciative inquiry decrease false positive diagnosis during leprosy case detection campaign in Bihar, India? An operational research study. So some people, they mention a study design at the end of it to catch the attention of their reader, right? But yes, I do agree that try to capture your primary objective, keep word count less, choose words very carefully, and you can make it catchy and attractive to your reader. So that's about title. Then we have to think about writing an introduction section of your protocol. And most of the time, in introduction section, we write a review of literature. No, introduction means you have to give some key basic definition, state the problem in the context, and then find out the gaps in the literature, then justify why you need a research on this topic. And then you say, okay, if this is a problem in the context, if these are the gaps in the literature, then we need to study this topic for this purpose. And that's how you make a case why this study should go on, right? Be careful with your introduction section, right? Make it in the language and make it in the language of a researcher. Use academic language here to convince the reader or your reviewer that how important it is to study that topic and what gap it is going to fill up in the literature and in practice. Now, the next thing, let's see some example here. What I mean by problem statement. But say in educational research and even in clinical research, I think everywhere we have to specify the problem. And what is the definition of problem? Problem means issue, concern, or controversy. And you will have to define this problem in the given context. For example, selection of student for a course. How will you select students for a course that you want to start and you have a specific outcomes in mind for that course? So you will have a question, what kind of students do I need to achieve those outcomes, to fulfill those job profiles? If you have a problem of poor treatment adherence, then you would naturally like to know why your patient do not take treatment. If you have a problem that most of the tools that you do use for your practice and for your measurements are not valid and reliable, you can start with a problem that you don't have those kinds of tools and you need to develop those. If you are running a distance learning course and students are not enrolling for it or discontinuing the course in between, or they have high dropouts, you would like to find out the solution to that. The very purpose of research is to find out solution to the problem. And to find out solution to the problem, we have to take that inquiry through a systematic process of data collection, analysis, and interpretation. But the first step of problem solving is identification of a problem which we need to solve by doing a research. Now, the next thing about purpose statement, which is little narrower than your problem. Problem is very broad. But then within that broad problem, we have to identify the purpose, which the purpose statement offers the direction or the focus of the study. It is further refined, more tailored for measurement. Now, here is an example for the purpose statement. For example, for quantitative component, you may wish to determine the relationship between reminder through phone and treatment adherence. And for qualitative component, if that is a part of your study, you have to state another objective mentioning to explore patient stories regarding use of SMS reminders to adhere to given treatment. Now, this is a kind of a mechanism by which we come from broad problem to a focused purpose statement for carrying out research. Believe me, this is little difficult part to put in any proposal. So that requires a very careful thinking when you do this exercise. Now, this is what I want to say here. You can put that in a Picot format as well if you want to put it in a, if you have a plan to go for an experimental study where you need a question in hand. So you make a journey from more general to specific. That means you go from topic to focused research question. Now here it is. You have a research problem, that is lack of treatment adherence. It's quite broad. Purpose statement, it's further refinement to study why patients fail to adhere to recommended treatment. And if you think that you don't need to go beyond that and you just want to stop at the purpose statement, you can stop at that. But if you have a plan to go further, do experimental research, and for that you have a question, you can further focus it, further refine it, and you can state your research question as, does the use of SMS reminder help the patient to adhere to treatment? And you can specify the time framework as well. This exercise of shifting from more broad to more specific should be clearly demonstrated or clearly written in your protocol. That gives a confidence to reader that, okay, you know the problem in a broad sense and you have tailored it to a researchable research question. So in that way, writing an introduction is not so easy job. You have to be careful about it. Go for that. Now, once you have that, right? Once you state the objectives, what you have in your mind in protocol, the next section that we write is review of literature. And this part has a tremendous importance when you have to relook at your research question once again in the light of what your peers have done, so that you get another chance to define your research question here. I'm sure you must have gone through review of literature and steps in doing literature review. But I'm going to put it up again just to help you how you put that in your protocol and what part you have to mention when you write for it. Review of literature is the process of justifying research problem. You can justify your research problem in 3 ways. 1, personal experience, used in qualitative research such as narrative research. But if you're doing master's thesis or PhD, we do not recommend you to use your personal experiences as a base for starting a research question. You may also speak to your colleagues and check your experience with them, right? And then validate your understanding with them. But the third thing that we say that what is the suggestion made by other researchers in their published articles? They are the important source for you to define your research question. So we suggest you can consider first and second option, but third one is very important for you to bring a kind of a validity to your understanding. Now, if I ask you this question, what is review of literature? Because this section, if you read in protocol, it's quite often it's poorly written. There's not enough review of literature, and there is not enough transparency also. That what they write, that if you want to check it, there is no way for you to check that what you have understood written is correct or correctly interpreted. For that, you need to have some kind of transparency in that. But before that, I would like to ask you a question. What is review of literature? How do we define it? And what if you do is called as review of literature? Can you write down 1 or 2 response in chat box? I'll just take 1 or 2 response and then I'll show you. So start writing. Okay, what is available in public domain about research problem and extensive search about the topic? Excellent. Right. Perfect. Thank you very much for your response. Review of literature is a written summary. Yes, what is already known in the topic done before. Right. Review of literature is written summary of articles, books, and other documents that describe the past and current state of knowledge about a topic for the purpose of study. So you should not just rely on articles available online. You have to visit library, open books, and then please also refer the documents, guidelines in the given by the professional bodies, and then make a synthesis of it, make a case for it. Why? Because it gives a confidence to your reader that you are aware about what is happening in the field, right? And this is called, and this is a very important process for us to keep in mind. So why review of literature? Why do we go about it? Partly I have answered it. Theoretical and methodological knowledge about, yes, that's correct. To get to check what kind of methodologies and theories have been used by other researchers in the field to answer that research question. I'm impressed with that point because that is a point quite often ignored. We need to keep that right. Perfect. It helps to refine the research question. It helps to the research question from, it helps you to tailor down your research question from more broad to more focused. It helps you to choose the framework, as you have very rightly mentioned, to choose the theoretical base for carrying out your study. And it then helps in discussing the findings from a broader viewpoint. And that brings a kind of generalizability that what you are talking about, it is not just your observation, but it's something, it is something relevant to other researchers as well. And that type of write-up is important. It is just not having in mind, but it is putting it on the paper so that others, those who read your protocol, understand your intentions clearly. Having a good protocol is a perfect beginning for carrying out a good research, right, and a good thesis. So how do we do literature search? We have key terms, you will wonder why I'm telling you these steps, but they are important because I want evidence that you have done all these things right in your protocol. So think of key terms that we choose from study title or the purpose statement. 2 to 3 keywords we choose from title of the study or objective. We develop a search strategy, right? We use a Boolean operator such as and, or, and then we look at the literature. We select the literature which is relevant to our question. We read those articles, we write a synthesis of it, and then we draw the literature map. And then if you want to read more about it, I would suggest you to read Best Evidence in Medical Education Practice, guide number 3, to know the steps about review of literature. Now here is an example. This is the search strategy I used for my master's thesis, which I did in 2017. And I took the search strategy. This was developed for PubMed articles. I gave it to my guide and asked him that, is it okay? We got it checked by the librarian that this search strategy is perfect and okay for us to get the articles. And this search strategy should be given in your protocol for reviewers to understand that, okay, this is the search strategy you used. And then once you get the search strategy, you get the articles, you give a full disclosure that how many articles you got, how many you actually reviewed out of that, and how you synthesize the literature. That gives a confidence to me that, okay, you have been thorough with it and you have gone through it and it is worth to study that topic. You remember that resources are limited, time is precious. So in order to use those resources and time in an efficient manner, you have to do research on a meaningful topic. And review kind of frustration of reinventing already known things. If you do review of literature properly, you are likely to contribute something meaningful. Once you get the articles, take a printout of those articles, put that in file, read those articles carefully line by line. And then once you read it, you can organize your review of literature either in a thematic way. Okay, this is a problem statement. These are the factors responsible for occurrence of disease. This is the situation in Southeast Asia region, in India, and rest of the world. And then you conclude in the end that, okay, this is not studied in this region, so that's why we are going for it. You can give it a study by study review. Or what I commonly practiced is combination of these two. You create a themes and under that you give articles author by author. At the end, try to draw the map of the concepts, right? And link them. This is called as literature map. Literature map tells you what is studied where and helps you to identify the gaps in the literature by doing a kind of a visualization. And you can call this as a conceptual framework. And this conceptual framework is crucial for developing the research question. And demonstration of this link in your protocol is important to understand that, okay, you got that stuff carefully, you have gone through that stuff carefully, and you got the idea, and you are doing work on something which is worth studying and meaningful. After you do review of literature, it's a very time-consuming process, right? And if you have done this review of literature very carefully, right when you develop protocol and not after you submit your protocol and get it approved, you can avoid frustration later, because sometimes it may happen that you get your protocol approved, but when you start review of literature, you come to know that most of the things that you are studying are known. There are already 30-40 articles available on the topic that you are studying. So then that's a waste of resources, right? So then you may study those variables which have been already studied. So that is fine. Careful literature right when you do protocol development is important. Next, you have to think about material and methods. Remember, as a methodologist, I see confusion between two terms, methodology and methods. Do you think they are same or they are different? If you think they are same, write down in chat box same. And if you think they are different, write down different. So I would just like to hear 1 or 2 responses from you on that. Any response? Different. Okay. Different. Perfect. I'm happy to hear that they are different. They are very, very different. First, methodology is a strategic approach for knowledge building by considering the knowledge gap, by considering the philosophical framework, which I will be talking, and by ethical and legal framework of the country. This is methodology. Material and methods that we talk about is a technique of data collection and analysis. So it is a bit narrower term. They should not be used interchangeably. The third thing is the research design. It refers to the plan of action that links the philosophical assumptions to specific methods, which I will be mentioning after some time. They are distinctly different. So what you write under them has to be in alignment with these definitions. These are the main three philosophical assumptions. In fact, there are 4. The first philosophical assumption is positivism, where you believe in single truth and objective nature of reality. Second philosophical assumption is constructivism, where you believe in multiple reality and subjectivity. And third one is pragmatism, in which we are currently living. We call it as third methodological movement called mixed method research, where researchers use combination of positivism and constructivism. So they don't get into defining, but they just use, they're more problem oriented, and they use methods which helps them to answer their research question. So if you're doing a quantitative research, you have a positivism. If you are using qualitative research, you are a constructivist. And if you are using combination of these two, you are a pragmatist. Now, there is no culture of writing philosophical assumptions explicitly in proposals, particularly in our region. And we have to bring that practice to state the philosophical assumptions clearly, because research is all based on assumptions. Then we write down the context, right? We describe the context in which, setting in which the study is going to happen. And you have to describe the context in a very detailed way, that this study will be done in XYZ department in this institution. We have this type of patients coming, and we deal them in this way. And then you write down something about the department as well, which is relevant to the research question. I have a question, why? Why do we write context clearly? This is because it helps the reader to check whether their context match with yours. This helps them to understand for, yes, you have written for grounding, perfect. This helps them to understand the transferability of findings to their context. Are they relevant? Do you and I work in similar context? If so, then your findings are going to be relevant for me as well. Second thing is about explicitly state what kind of philosophical assumptions are you going to have in your study, and what assumptions are going to help you to answer your research question. Then give details about quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method. Don't just write down one line, or sometimes I see case control study or cohort study. Write down in a descriptive form. You have a plan to go for a case control study, and why you think that case control study is appropriate for it. So write down that justification for having that design for that particular research question. State it clearly. The next important issue is think about sample size and sampling. If you're doing quantitative research, then you have to choose a probability sampling. State what kind of probability sampling are you going to do. If you are doing qualitative research, you are going to do non-probability sampling. So you have to state what kind of non-probability sampling are you going to do, and why have you chosen that type of non-probability sampling. Always cite references for your decisions for readers to make a judgment that you are making decisions not just based on your perceptions or ideas, but you have a scientific base for making those decisions. If you're doing mixed methods, you have a big challenge because you have to explain both quantitative and qualitative part of it. And so you need to have an expertise in both quantitative and qualitative when you go for that kind of design. If you're going for data collection, think about questionnaire. You have learned how to develop a valid, reliable instrument or questionnaire for measurement of your research question. If you are doing qualitative research, you have to use an interview guide. You have to attach interview guide. If you are doing mixed method, you have to attach both. And if you are doing analysis on secondary data, then you may give them your data extraction form and the selection of your variables for that. In data collection, specify who will collect the data. What is the qualification of the person who is collecting that data, right? Say, for example, you're doing a study on domestic violence, then you would certainly like to choose female gender investigator so that women will be comfortable giving them responses. When will you collect that data? In daytime or evening time? And give them reason for choosing that hours. Say, for example, you may state that you will collect data evening hours with the assumption that people will be available at their home. Or you may do survey in the morning hours with the assumption that they will be available at home. And how will you collect that data, right? So are you going to record that on the questionnaire, or are you going to collect that data by doing interview and doing audio recording? State everything very explicitly and in a descriptive manner. Give details of your analysis plan. What kind of software are you going to use? What is the version? Do you have a license version or trial version, free versions of it with you? And what kind of variables do you have? What kind of independent variables are you going to deal with it, right? And then what kind of analysis will you be doing with those? What kind of test of significance you have in mind to test those relationships? If you're doing qualitative data analysis, what kind of codes and categorization? What is the framework that you're going to use? You have to give description of all that. Get the clearance from the institutional ethics committee. Attach the supportive document, consent forms, questionnaires. And in the end, make sure that you attach a Gantt chart, your timeline, that how you're going to achieve it, right? And source of funding if you have some expenses required to meet when you carry out your study. So think about all this. So that will check your study not only on a scientific ground, but will also check its feasibility in the given context. Will you be able to do that in the given time as well with the given resources? That's important to keep in mind. Now, I was just mentioning about analysis plan, which is often poorly written section in protocols. And quite often they are just copy pasted from their colleagues, what they have done. And it's quite common that they do not match with your intentions. So first check what is your intention. What is your primary objective? If that is so, then what kind of variables I'm going to deal with it? What is my independent dependent? Okay, to demonstrate that kind of relationship, what kind of statistical analysis do I need? And if that is so, then what kind of test of significance would be appropriate for that, considering the sample size I have in my study, right? So selection of variables is crucial, and start thinking about variables when you are developing protocol. A good selection of variables will help you to measure your outcomes in I would say in more precise and in more scientific way. Then if you have a mixed method, ask yourself a question: do you have expertise or do you have colleagues in your department to help you for both quantitative and qualitative data analysis? Okay, so now variable means something which can be measured and something which varies. And that's the definition you have to keep in mind when you select variables. You are often assigned guides when you carry out research, and you and your guide have to make this journey together. And one of the important steps that they should do it together is selection of variables, because if you miss variables in your questionnaire and if you forget to measure it, then you are going to not discover or not going to contribute that new finding which you were having in mind when you did review of literature. So review of literature is also going to help you to select variables for your study. Now, the last point I would mention, that the very purpose of developing your protocol or your study, carrying out your study, is to measure truth in the universe. For that, you have a research question. Take an example that your target population is all IV drug abusers in San Francisco, for example. And your phenomenon of interest is to find out how many of them are infected with AIDS virus, if that is true. So you have to measure everyone, but that is not possible. That's why you do a design, and your design is going to measure truth in the study. So you do a study plan and you write a protocol, and then you say your intended sample, you specify that intended sample and time frame, and you measure the phenomenon of interest by choosing some intended variables, such as proportion with antibodies to AIDS virus. So this is your protocol development. These are your ideas. So you are trying to measure truth in the universe by developing a scientific protocol. Howsoever hard you work on that, but you are going to have some errors and some errors in your inferences. So your effort should be to keep your protocol as close as possible to the truth in the universe so that you measure it. And when you actually implement it, you actually do a study, but you end up studying less than what you had intended, or you achieve your sample, and you actually measure the antibodies using some ELISA test. And then based on that study finding, you do some inferences. You are likely to do some errors at that stage also. So some errors at the protocol development and some errors at the stage of study implementation. So when there is a gap, I mean, what we call that as whatever you have intentions and what you actually do, that we call it as internal validity. And whatever your study findings finally measure, we call that as a kind of an external validity between your protocol. So if you develop a good protocol to measure, to take into consideration both internal validity as well as external validity, you are likely to produce a scientific truth to the universe for the community, scientific community, and that will be of relevance. And that is important. And we do errors in development protocol, and there are plenty of errors we do during implementation and compromises. And then what we get in the end is a study which is not internally valid, and the findings have no relevance to the scientific world outside. So protocol development is that important, and a very exciting and important intellectual step in your academic curriculum. So please see your master's thesis and PhD thesis as a wonderful opportunity to give meaningful contribution to the scientific community if you keep all those steps in mind. And finally, these are my last practical tips. There are many actually, but since I didn't know the intended crowd who is going to come here, but please make sure that your objectives and methods match with each other. That's the first flaw I see when I read proposal. Howsoever nice protocol you may have, always give it to your colleagues and ask them to become a devil's advocate and ask them to find out as many mistakes as they can and give them party if they do so that you can improve your proposal. Do not get emotionally attached with what you have developed. Keep it open for peer comments. They can really take it to the next level. Third thing to keep in mind, select good variables. Take help of your guide with your peer and help of your peers, because to select a variables, you need an eye. You need a kind of theoretical sensitivity. Have a good measurement plan and do it strictly, carefully, and systematically. Be honest and transparent, right? Do the documentation of everything that you do. That should be there in your questionnaire, so that if anybody want to do an audit and do the check of what you have done so far, they should have access to those documents. If you think that you are weak in design and you are very busy clinician, you work in clinical practice and you don't want to spend your too much time doing those conceptual thinking, or if you think that you need help in biostatistics, please consult them in advance, not after data collection, because they can really help you to improve the rigor of your study. It's okay if you get less articles on your topic. Rather, that's a good news. When I did my MD thesis, I just got 1 or 2 articles on it. And my colleagues used to say, oh, they got 20 or 30 articles. And I used to feel jealous of them, that they will get plenty of things to write in review of literature and I will not get anything to write in that. So in fact, if you get less articles, it's a sign that you are studying something which is not. There may be 2 reasons for it. One is that you have done really a bad literature search, or second, you are doing contribution to something very rarely studied topic on that. And the last thing, be careful with academic matters. There is an issue of academic dishonesty, that you think that, oh, I just want to get my proposal cleared this way or that, and then you tend to copy paste the stuff what has been already reported and published, and then you try to align your study with already published article. Be original. You can be different than them. That's okay. Rather, you have to be different than them. Then only you can contribute something new. So if your study objectives, if your methods are very similar to what has been already reported, then perhaps you are not on the right track. You may not get a good output in the end. And so if you are exploring something new, you are going to have lots of challenges. And protocol is that first document that you provide in your research journey, which gives the confidence not only to others, but to you also, that you are going to make something new discovery or contribution in the field of science. So thank you very much for your patient listening. And based on your responses in chat box, I could make out that you were with me. And I'm sure that you were knowing lots of things already, but I just try to organize it in the way I understand it and just to share it with you. So thank you very much for your questions. And thank you all the team from AVMC, and special thanks to Bhatt sir and Mahalakshmi madam for inviting me to have this session. Thank you very much. It was indeed a pleasure. If you have any question, you're most welcome.
Thank you, sir. It was excellent.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Yes, madam.
Suppose if there is a checklist or if there is a tool which is available in the public domain, for example, if I want to use Kalamazoo's checklist for one of my communication skills evaluation thing, do we still need to take permission from the authors because it is in public open domain and
No.
it is a validated one?
No. If at the end of questionnaire, if no such issue is written, we can use that. But say, for example, some questionnaires, they write down at the end that you have to take a permission from the authors before you use it. That means we need it.
Thank you, sir.
So,
There is a question in the chat box. Sir.
yes.
Yeah, please give more details about internal and external validity. Dr. Gomati wants to know.
Okay. Validity means that you measure what you are supposed to, and uh, the what do you say? Your whole design, research design, uh, will that measures the truth in the universe? And uh, if your study findings has to be externally valid, means can generalize your findings from the sample that you studied to the wider population. We call that as an external validity, or also called as statistical validity. So can I, if I study the handful of samples, I choose them carefully, and if I choose the adequate number that I should study for that topic, then the findings that I get in that, if that is applicable to the universe or in which you actually wanted to measure the truth. So this shifting of interpretation from more specific to general is called as a kind of external value that your findings are generalizable to the wider population. That is the external validity. For internal validity, that have you used a rigorous process? For example, in qualitative research, we do not have internal validity. But what we want to pay attention that whatever you had a plan to measure, did you really measure those things? Right? So that is what we call it as internal validity. In qualitative research, we call that as credibility. Can I trust your findings that whatever you had intention to study, did you really study and measure those? Right? So that's how we see it in that way.
So there is a response in the chat box from Dr. Vishnu Bhatt. Very nice talk.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Nothing. What I
And
learned from all of you people, I'm just putting it in words here. That's it.
so quite a few very nice talk, very informative, fantastic talk, and wonderful talk. Those kind of responses are there, sir.
Thank you.
And one question is still there. What is best, a constructed tool or a standardized tool? Dr. Sudha wants to know.
Mm, difficult question. Actually, I was reading a book by Presswall, Educational Research on Presswall, and he says that he used a line, standardized tool is a misnomer. He says, we say that that tool is standardized, but in which we work, they are so different. So even if you take a standardized tool, you have to do some contextualization for it. And then he wrote a nice chapter in that book on that standardized tool is misnomer. And we have to make efforts to contextualize it, to modify it. And if you think that the concept that you are measuring is not measuring or is not asking those questions in the context, you can for your own question. So there are 7 steps of questionnaire development. You can refer if you write in Google 7 steps in questionnaire development, you will get how you can develop questionnaire for your studies. And my whole research practice, I have used standardized tools only on 2 or 3 occasions. Most of the time I had to develop my own because I work in mainly a social science set, but in clinical setting, I'm not aware, but they may be applicable. If so, then please check the question. When you check the question, just check how will your respondent think about those questions. For example, if there is a question for socialization, and if you are asking a respondent that on weekends, do you go to pubs for chill? Now that line may not be relevant to rural youths if they are not going to pub to chill, say for example. So there will be certain items may not be culturally relevant. Yeah. Or sometimes it may be inappropriate to ask in that culture. So then in that you need some contextual modification. So there are some steps for contextualizing the questionnaire. There are steps for developing the questionnaire and adapting the questionnaire to your. So you can refer literature on that.
Very nice talk. I think. Very interesting.
Thank you.
And most of points clarified. I think you will continue to support us.
Sure, sir. Most welcome. Thank you for your time.
Let us come online. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Amol, namaste.
Namaste, sir.
And the Dean, welcome you very much. Thank you very much. I could
Thank you,
join the
sir.
later part of your.
Sorry, sir. I have overshooted my time. I think I have taken
No,
your
no.
sir.
you started a little late. Also. So,
Yeah.
you are well in time.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, one information for the participants, what Dr. Amol keeps telling that guide number 3 on research, educational research, which is available in our MEU library. Actually, right behind Dr. Vidyavati said. So you can actually go and take it. Any of you who want to do the questionnaire development and refer to literature on the subject, it is available. And there is a fantastic book on educational research, the green color book, what you can see in the thing. So that also can be used. That is for the information of participants. Thank you, Dr. Amal.
Thank you, ma'am.
We move on to the next session. The critical appraisal of journal article by Professor Kotur, Dean, AVMC. Professor Kotur is
Yeah.
presently Dean at AVMC. He has worked as Vice Chancellor of Sri Devaraj URS University, Kolar, Karnataka. And he has held various positions in anesthesia professional bodies. He's been Executive Committee member of WFSA, President Indian Society of Anesthesiologists, Editor Indian Journal of Anesthesia, Editor SARC Journal of Anesthesia, and Member Executive Council SARC Association of Anesthesiologists. He has delivered more than 40 guest lectures, orations at various national international conferences, and has more than 75 scientific publications. And sir has been instrumental in establishing departments of medical education, health professions education, and skill and simulation labs in all the 3 universities where he had worked. Sir, we'd like to hear from you, sir. Welcome you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Vidyavati. My colleagues, Professor Bhatt, Mahalakshmi, and other colleagues. Satyamurthy is there. And
Not
of course,
seen today.
Dr. Yes, and Dr. Amol. I'm indeed
Not there today.
happy to share some thoughts on this topic of critical appraisal, which is done by everybody in the profession at different levels. As a student, I have done, as a teacher, I have done, as an administrator, I have to do. That's very important. And now the 60 minutes that has been allotted to me, what I have tried to divide it is, about 30 minutes. Around 30 minutes, I will share some thoughts. And of course, we all understand there are handicaps. This will be able to be a physical session. We'd have had it very interactions and make it more lively. We have some handicaps, and because of that, we have modified suitably. And the remaining part of this is kind of a open session. Rather it should have been a group activity, which will consume time. It will not be possible to conduct with time. And one article I hope I have circulated to all the participants. And I assume, in every session, wherever I'm conducting, I ask resource material was sent to you. How many of you have gone through it? Raise your hands. None of the hands, one or two half-hearted hands. Then we used to give some time for them to read there only from 15 minutes, 20 minutes like that. Now we don't have time for that. I assume that, at least 10% of the people would have read it. And yesterday I asked Mahalakshmi how to sort it out. We have found out a novel solution. We'll have identified some people and we'll elicit interactions with them. Morning, Dr. Vidyavati was also asking, who all should. Then I said, no, you only decide.
Sir, we can do
Anyway.
one now also, sir. We can ask people who have read the article to put number 1 in the chat box, and people who have not read the article can put number 2 in the chat box. So you will get an idea. 1 for read the article, 2 for not read the article.
You want to give some time for that? A minute?
1 minute, sir.
Yes.
I have.
Already I got 3.
Yeah.
Manju has read. Gomati has read. Good, great. Oh my God, good. Jayita has read. Okay, yeah.
Dr. Uma Devi.
No.
Yeah. Dr. C.B. Mandela. Rakesh. Sasmita,
Sasmita,
Dr. Sudha, partly.
until 1, 2 comes, we'll wait.
Okay.
That means we will
Dr.
assume that
Rajan.
remain our Rajan. Because in fact, he only gave me yesterday late evening that article.
No, not that Dr. Rajan, sir. BSALP, Dr. Rajan.
Okay, good.
Okay, sir.
Good. So at least, I said that the total number of participants are 145. At least about say 10% I was expecting. Okay, nearing to that. It's a good, excellent. We'll go to the business. I will share the screen now. One sec. Oh, sorry, Vidyavati, is it visible?
Sir, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, make it full screen, sir.
Yeah, I'm making.
Yes, sir. Visible.
Yeah. I already said how I will have divided the time. Now the time is 3:09. My count starts from now, so that I will not be accelerating halfway through, already time is over or something. So I'll try to answer some basic questions, what, why, how of critical appraisal. Many of you might already be knowing it. And I will have some thoughts on how exactly critical appraisal has to be there and what are the tools available for that. And we have a couple of checklists. Of course, with the permissions downloaded from the Google. And because I overheard somebody asking questions to Dr. Amol, previous speaker, these questionnaires, etc., can we use it? So some require, some are free, like that. And I have some thoughts on fast track appraisal, which is also very much needed. You can't go on telling that I'm doing a critical appraisal, I will take 1 day, I will take 1 hour, that kind of a thing. Now everything is fast. And we have a last 30 minutes group activity on that, or some open session. So I try to define in the simplest possible way. Many of you might be aware of the definition. It is looking at the published research or public literature in an objective and a structured way, systematic way, in order to find how authentic it is, how nearer to the truth it is. If you go by the definition of the dictionary definition of the critical, critical is something you are inclined to find fault, something when you are reading. That's what the dictionary meaning says. And of course, appraisal is like valuing it or estimating the value of it. So it is self-explanatory, the term critical appraisal, judging or assessing the value of something which has been published. So in this exercise, you'll be finding out the strengths and the weaknesses. No doubt you are trying to find out the faults, but at the same time, you should have a wisdom to appreciate the strengths in that, which will certainly be of help to anybody, whoever is doing the critical appraisal. Now the issue is who has to do the critical appraisal. The answer is anybody. I said last fourth, all teacher, student, professional, and everybody other than these three also. And this is the table I made here. Why everybody does, the student does the critical appraisal, why the teacher does, why the clinician they do, and any other professionals. So student will be doing that in the learning phase of how to do critical appraisal, especially the postgraduates. Is one of the important modes of instructions of the postgraduate curriculum, every weekly journal clubs. Yes, and it is one of the very important component of the PG dissertation as well. Big review of literature section will be there. You need to appraise it. You need to appraise that and write the inference out of that. And the teacher will be to teach critical appraisal. And if the teacher is very passionate about the preaching evidence-based education, now certainly he will have to do the critical appraisal of the educational research. And of course, clinicians, this is the era of evidence-based medicine. Anybody wants to give optimal care to the patient, best available care to the patient available anywhere in the world. And also the clinical decision making has to be correct. Now with the consumer redressal forum and all, you are exposed to so many things, wanted and unwanted. So optimal clinical decision making also has to be there. As a part of that, the clinician has to do the critical appraisal. And of course, for doing the research, that is the mainstay of doing any research, like appraisal of the existing literature, any other purpose, any other professional, or professionals belonging to other, like management person. So he wants to do evidence-based management, public health person, he wants to do evidence-based public health, like that. So whoever is supposed to do with a specific purpose in the mind is what I want to do that. Now we'll try to answer the question, why critical appraisal? The voluminous data that is published, I always say, if anybody tries to read, if you start reading every day, 24 hours a day, all the articles that are published across the globe in subjects, if you start reading today, no time for food, sleep, anything, then at the end of 1 year, you will lag behind by 2 years. That will give an overall idea how much of literature is pouring out. These are all the numbers. 6 million articles are published every day. On an average, every journal publishes 70 articles per day. There are about 5,000 journals, 6,000 journals. Those kind of statistics are available. The last point, the one thing is, the average quality score of RCTs published in these reputed, internationally time-tested journals is less than 50% score. That means we always call it as a giga technology. Garbage in and garbage comes out. So that you have to keep that thing in mind. That will lay down the need for appraisal of the literature that is published. And this is a very important statement. Reader must take the personal responsibility for judging the validity and clinical importance of the medical. Whoever publishes it, suppose anybody reads it, it is his responsibility to judge it, give a value to it. He can't say that he has published it, so I have followed and I gave it to my patient and patient kicked the bucket. So no, the author is not responsible. So you have to be like, the law of communication. If the communicatee doesn't understand what the communicator is telling, the fault lies with the communicator. Similar principle here. So the person who reads, not the author, must take the responsibility for applying the findings of the research to his patients or his setup. So this is another aspect of critical appraisal. The physicians now, especially COVID period, has taught us quite a lot, many new lessons, like the media, misleading literature, etc. And public is inundated with medical advice and what to follow, what not to follow. Okay, so the task of the damage control to the public or community, that lies with the physician, that lies with the medical professionals. You should be able to educate, tell the people what is right, what is wrong. Somebody advertising, with good some other faiths, damage. You remember one South American country, they started COVID drink free to all college, compulsory to the college schools. So that was all quite misleading. Sometimes we know about the controversy about the chloroquines. So these kind of things, our physician's duty is to educate the public as what is, that is the task of damage control. There are some general rules for performing the journal club. We all normally say, when we do the postgraduate journal clubs, circulate the articles at least 15 days before. Though not the full article, circulate the summary. Then the presenter has to be ready to answer all the queries of the participants by checking all the cross references. And he should have sufficient information to answer the queries put forth by the participants. And many a times we have seen, I remember, the journal clubs, now lot many changes have happened. Earlier, I remember 80s and all, journal club, while coming to the journal club only, I remember, there was not even a postgraduate department. We had one senior member. While coming to the journal club, he used to come via library and get any one journal which he picks up. Journal should be lucky enough from him to be picked up. And he used to open it and read from beginning to end. That used to happen. Now those things with awareness and education reforms, etc., those things are not happening. But anyway, that is not to be. And generally, our law of anyway, how much time one person can listen to other, you apply that in 45 minutes to maximum 1 hour, everything, including presentation, including the interaction, everything should be over. Now, I always take help of this article written by George Bordas from University of Illinois, a medical educationist and a physician intensivist, internist, not an intensivist. And this article was published almost 30 years back, 32 years back now, yes. And this is used across the many journals, many places, it is a wonderful document wherein the critical appraisal, you can use it to read an article, you can use it to write an article, and the marks have been allotted to that. And when I was editing the National Journal, 7 years, I used to use it for even peer reviewing or editorial scrutiny. I used to that. And wonderful, you will not miss anything. This is what is. I'll just scan through that, and that is available on the net also. You can download that. And I'll just scan through that, and wherever possible, I'll stress on some points so that I'll keep up my time. So about the title, all of us know, title should be crisp, brisk, clear, not misleading. You can't give a very attractive title, sudden complication, these kind of things, these are not advocated. Primary objective of the article should be, of the study has to be reflected. This is what you see. And keywords from the medical subject heading words. Yesterday, Pushpa was taking that reviewing the literature and the review of literature. In that one, a lot of emphasis on this medical subject heading words, which is there on the right-hand side of the home page of PubMed. And your keywords are chosen from that. So just try to have that. And this is one general statement, might be wrong. Reputed authors from a reputed place increase the authenticity. There might be exceptions, right? So that's why you check for the credentials of the authors, affiliations, address, etc. So now coming to the word component abstract. Abstract is either of the structured or unstructured, wherein the broad structure is used to display the abstract. That is a structured word. Unstructured is in the paragraph. And just go through that, and whether it's, you have to have some fair idea, because that is the one which will abstract, is the one which converts onlooker into a reader. So it should go on like that, whether it is written or not properly. Now coming to the introduction, this is a very important thing. Necessarily introduction will be about 1, 2, 3 or maximum 4 paragraphs. It certainly doesn't run in pages. One. And if to be specific, it will necessarily contain 3 paragraphs. What is known about the topic, what is not known about this topic, deduct what is not known from the known, then you will get the need. Whether the author has justified the need for the study or not is the one which you see when you read an article with the intention of doing critical appraisal. If the need is not justified, then the whole purpose is useless. So the pertinence or need has to be said. And overall, introduction gives you an overall big picture of what is going to be there inside. Generally, you see the last paragraph of the introduction. Hence, we have attempted to do this. Hence, the study, these kind of wordings, you see that. And a word about the citations. The introduction is not the one where you have all 30, 40, 50 citations to be listed there. Maximum 3 to 5 citations or references have to be there. What is known, what is not known, or some limitation. So that's one. These things you see. The overall conceptual framework or theoretical framework of the article, you will come to know when you read the introduction and some related review of the topic. This I already said. So I use the word funneled. So from what is known, which is very big, then what is not known becomes small, and you funnel down, narrow down to need. This is what you should keep always in the mind and see whether the author has done it or not. Now coming to the material methods. So these numbers on the left hand side, 14, 15, there are total 39 parameters what Dr. Bordas has described. And each one component has got a point marks, maybe a fraction of 1 also are there, and it will give a very good result if you start doing that. So then this material method should contain description, appropriate of various variables, research design, confounders, the study setting. So it should contain so much of information, detail sufficient, not more, not less, by reading which person with average intellect should be able to reproduce the results or repeat the study. This is in a very simplified way. I'm telling how much information should material method contain. That much not more sufficient to produce the results. And of course, we are all familiar with the errors can creep into the study at any time of the study, conduct of the study, conceiving, writing, that kind of a thing. So generally, when you are doing the critical appraisal, you are well versed with the methods. Those are utilized by any researcher or a writer. Exhaust, randomization, blending, placebo, or accounting for all the enrolled subjects. So these things, whether they have been there or not. And the results, of course, efficient use. Efficient, what I mean is to display the same thing, you use a table, you use a bar diagram. That's what we see many a time. So efficient use, no repetition, which is good for that appropriate things you have to be there. And the result should be very precise. And now we are halfway through this session, and almost all sessions, but for statistical issues and ethical issues, are complete in this research methodology workshop now. You are all familiar with the study designs, about research, data literature set, hypothesis, null hypothesis, all those things are there. So you are well informed about all these things. That will make the things quite simpler for you to do or understand the critical appraisal. So in the discussion, the essential things will be like, all the debatable aspects. This is a place wherein the author has got some scope to express, not his personal ideas, but to express something related to what he has inferred based on the experiment he has performed. And compare, contrast with justification with other workers on the same subject. On the same subject, some other person also has done the study, right? Whether your results concur with that or not, with him or not. If yes, give the reasons. If no, try to find out the reason and justify. Oh, our results did not match with the study done by somebody else. He had a prolonged duration, whereas we had a shorter duration. I'm trying to give an example. You have to find out, justify what could possibly have been for them to get a longer duration of something, what you're doing. So these kind of discussions you have to have, and in the discussion. And the conclusions should always be coherent or commensurate with the design, instrument. And see, many times we'll see the primary objective, secondary objective are different. Conclusions drawn will be something generalized conclusions. Doing the study on pediatrics and concluding on the adult population. These kind of things I have seen. I've seen in the dissertations. I've seen in the articles submitted for the publications also I've seen. So to keep these things in mind. Now, in the discussion, two important points I said, are the conclusions rational based on the results of the study? That's one. And second thing is, in the light of the other people's findings, the results of yours have to be compared and contrasted. So I specifically look for these things in the various sections. So you are doing the appraisal in a systematic way, judging in a systematic way to find out the fault or to find out the strength in each of the sections. So then whatever you have inferred out, you have to explain, that's okay. And this is a place wherein you should be honest enough to express your limitations. So probably limitations of the study. What made you not to do some things which though are important and relevant. Okay. Then the scope for the future research. The research builds knowledge, new knowledge. Now knowledge goes on expanding. Then somebody later on, they will do the literature and finds that whatever is the gap, which they think you have not addressed. So that will be the scope for the future. What you call thrust areas or something, you find out the gaps, knowledge gaps. So these things have to be necessarily addressed in discussion, whether the author has done them or not. Now, this is a very important thing, references. One thing what I've seen, many of the authors, what they say is, if the more number of references are there, more authentic, more valid the study is wrong. This notion is totally wrong. So there are, even though they have no hard and fast rules and how many numbers of references have to be there for a review, for a case, for a case report or for any clinical original article like that. There is some consensus. They say for a case report 10 to 15, and for this clinical investigation 25, for review 45 to 60. That is just understanding. Otherwise, and many times, to order thinking that more of a validity, go on make one silly statement. Sun rises in the east, references 1 to 10. What nonsense? No, these kind of things also we see. So you just whether you see and whether the standard rules for publications are there or not. And we all know that various styles of writing references, ASA style, Oxford style, Vancouver style, Harvard style, these are the two ones which are used exclusively. And which one the author has used. Of course, the referencing style will be as per the guidelines of the journal. So the journal only in the guidelines to the contributors, they will be telling, we follow this method of referencing. So that also see. And the question is, I already discussed, are they adequate? There are some general considerations, whether very IMRAD structure, introduction, methodology, results, and discussion. Even though they are, we try to say that they are different sections, they are not different compartments. You have to keep in mind. So transition from one to the other section has to be smooth. It has to be in the form of a narration, whether author has done it or not. Otherwise, you lose the contact and the person will not be able to complete the article, read the complete article. And uniform, consistent terminology throughout, especially we always say non-English mother tongue authors start in the present tense, go to future, come back to past. These kind of things we have seen when you start editing that one. Or inch becomes centimeter, centimeter becomes meter later, millimeters become tor. So these kind of things, ML, CC, so many things we have seen. So these are the things which will enhance the validity from different angles. The silly mistakes will bring down the value, even though a lot of stuff is there. And the tone, there is no scope for any flowery language, poetic language. And we all know, from the grammatical point of view, past participle passive voice has to be used. There is no scope for using active voice. I did it, we did it, like that, that is not the language that is accepted. I'm not telling it is wrong, that is not accepted. Past participle passive voice, because the study is already over. So spelling error, grammar, so on. Of course, these things with many facilitations on the net are reduced. And when you do the critical appraisal at the end, what are these? Suppose you have given a chance to give some suggestions to the authors. If you as a reader or a person who is doing a critical appraisal are able to give 1 or 2 suggestions, that shows that you have critically appraised that. And application of your results to your setting, that is an important thing. Now coming to the third part of our my talk, I think I have another 8-9 minutes. This is a checklist in a very simplified one. As an article as a whole, not as a separate compartments. You should have whole you are totally assessing or evaluating or adjudging the article, not a particular section of it. So let's see, is it an original work? You should be able to answer that some positivity. Is it scientifically reliable and valid? Enough has already been talked about reliability, validity. These are the psychometric qualities of these tools. And is it clinically important or relevant or not? Especially the clinical study. Relevant, what I mean is, suppose you are doing something related to COVID now, it's quite relevant now. Something disease which is epidemic, which is prevalent in this particular region. So that's what decides that. And what are the strong points that I already said? What are the weaknesses? And when you say weaknesses, given a chance, do you think you are able to rectify them? Or can it be rectified? If so, how? If you say yes, yes, you should be able to say that. Before pointing out at somebody, you should know what should be the correct one. So then you have to say, is it suitable to present? This is some checklist which you can apply when you are ready to present this one, what they call critical appraisal of an article. And again, some more reinforcements on this, some simple questions. Abstract and title should say what it is all about. Authors, what are their credentials? Introduction should necessarily answer the question, why did they do it? Why did they start it? Need for the study, yes. Material method, what was done? And what in the results, what was found? And what was found, what does it mean is the discussion. Then the references for the framework and implications are what is relevant to you. General consideration style of the article, I already shared some thoughts on that. So apply these simple checklists when you do the critical appraisal. You will be doing justice for the exercise. Now, one or two thoughts about fast track appraisal. Now everything is fast track. Surgery is fast track, recovery is fast track, heart surgery is fast track. So all kinds of things. Why not this critical appraisal fast track? Here again, I come back to my favorite subject. Evidence-based medicine. Patient has come to your counter. You want to give a updated evidence-based treatment, evidence-based advice to the patient. And if you say that, I'm doing the appraisal and to find out the best evidence come tomorrow, nobody will come to you next day. So you should have a tool to assess or do the critical appraisal fast track. If you do it by practice, in my personal experience, you should be able to do it in a couple of minutes, some 5-10 minutes or something. You should be able to overall give some good evidence-based updated advice or updated decision. That's why I shared on 2 or 3 slides as how to do a critical appraisal. That a Bordage table, you go on answering one by one questions 39. Even if you take 1 minute, it will become 39 minutes. Nobody has got a time. So you should have some shortcut or a fast track appraisal of an article. Yesterday, we were about to leave office, then we decided that, some article has to be circulated to all our participants. Then, I was searching something, I had searched something and Mahalakshmi came and said, no, sir, don't give any anesthesia article. I had already done that. Then I thought her advice was right. Then immediately Rajan was there, then he opened his mobile and he gave something related to COVID. I just did a fast track appraisal in 5 minutes, 10 minutes there only. Then immediately we decided, chalo, this article will be the very good one for tomorrow. So this is a 3-step process, fast track appraisal. First step is to initial validity and relevance. That is, the article is relevant to the situation or not. This is the macro validity, author's credibility, institutional credibility, where is one conducted. They will give the initial validity and relevance. When you do that, try to find out in the second step why the article has been written or why the study has been done. Intent. Next is very simple, validity-based intent. So if you do this, you will certainly not make any mistake, gross mistake, I'll say. So to find out whether the article deserves the time to review or depth, I think questions, is it from a peer-reviewed journal? Dr. Bhatt insists on always peer-reviewed journal. Copernicus is also gone. Only Scopus or PubMed. So if it is from these credible databases where the article or journal is enlisted, then it will increase the credibility. So is the environment of the study similar to mine? Just see that. And is the one thing very important thing, when the study is sponsored, we all know the reason. So everything is commercialized. So even the research is commercialized. Even the results are commercialized. See, we see so many things, even this COVID pandemic only, so many evidence came with article published in great journals, it retracted, study was identified as fake. So many things came. So you have to be very careful when you are doing critical appraisal. If the article is from a commercial backed-up, conflict of interest, the study is financed by these pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, you have your own reservations. Don't classify outrightly bad, but just see. So then suppose the findings of these will improve the well-being of my patients. Yes, see that. And a stop or negativity to any of the questions should stop the clinician spending further time. Initially only. So these are some of the things you will do. I already said about intent. Any of the articles will be trying to answer 4 things: therapy, diagnosis, etiology, and prognosis. Trying to find out the cause of the disease or best treatment, or the prognosis, how long the patient will live, or trying to cause. So just to find out, what is the study trying to find out the prognosis, etiology, or something, or the therapy, then you'll have some fair idea why the study has been done, right? Then the intent is determined by reading abstract and, if necessary, skimming the introduction. I said in last paragraph, I already said that. Last paragraph necessarily will tell why the article has been, why the study has been done. Then this is validity based on the intent, see the applicability, 4 clinical categories, which I already said. And there are, many tools are available to critically appraise therapy-related article, diagnosis-related article, prognosis-related. The charts are there, or the templates are there. You can use them, and beautiful templates are there, in the net. So the fast track appraisal in a nutshell, you get started. They read the abstract. The abstract has to be read. There's no shortcut for that. Bold face heading are to be surveyed, and tables graph you can have a bird look. And first sentence of each paragraph you skim through, and you will grasp. You'll come to know. No, I already said it will come by experience. And methodology adopted has to be reviewed with the background of the intent. So again, the same thing. These are some simple questions about these randomization, sampling, masking, selection, etc. So the final word is, yeah, exactly, I'm well in time. With some practice, the use of worksheets, one can quickly, within minutes, perform the critical appraisal. This is the first-hand experience. We initially used to think, such a Herculean task. Go on doing it. And it's always advantageous to realize that very few of the articles will be perfect. This you always keep in the back. So I think I'll come to, I think this is the last slide. Of course, there are my references. And thank you very much. And very sorry for rushing through all the information monotonously, rather, without any break. That we don't have any alternative for that. Now we have exactly half an hour from now on to make it the compensate for the non-interruption. So I have already 10 people who have read the article. Okay. Now we'll start the exercise. First, I'll ask voluntarily answer. Yes. Now we'll go to the title of the article first. Can anybody volunteer to come forward to comment on the title quickly? 1 minute for everything. Otherwise, I'll take the name. The person has to answer that.
Sir, you want us to share the articles, sir?
Yeah, I'll share that.
Okay.
I'll share now. It's here. Yeah, can anybody please come forward to comment on the article, title of the article?
Dr. Sudha has read it partly, so I hope that she has read the title. She can comment on the title. Dr.
Malakshmi,
Sudha, AB 22.
Malakshmi,
Yes, sir.
share the article. No, it's not coming here. In my
Okay, sir. Give me a minute, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes. You make it full screen, no?
Ah.
Yeah, yes, Dr. Sudha. She's here.
She had responded. Can't unmute. Okay, 1 minute, 1 minute. Participants. Sudha.
Sudha is from which institute?
I don't know, sir. Sudha, you can unmute.
Dr. Sudha, you identify about you and
Yeah, you can. She's unmuted. You can speak now.
yes.
I think. Sir,
Are you trying to? Yeah. Sorry.
1
Is there- I
minute
think
you
she-
give me, sir.
she's facing
I'll
one
allow
problem.
participants to unmute themselves. Now it is better. I put off that option because there was some disturbance. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please. You identify. Who is this?
This is
Pagatur, madam.
No, it's Sudha. No, Dr. Sudha was
Sudha, can
supposed
you
to
talk?
speak, no? No, 1 second.
It is not
Dr.
Sudha.
Sudha.
It's
If
your
your
madam.
name is Sudha, you talk.
Sudha is not speaking.
Okay.
She's
Then,
unmuted. Though.
okay, well, Manju has read the article. Can you comment, Dr. Manju? Evidence.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please comment on the article quickly. We have to run it. We're running out of time.
Yes, I'll run in 2 minutes. Sir, I went through the article. It's by Konar,
Yeah.
sir, so I'm not a person to critic on it because he's one of my mentors while I was doing my MD. Anyhow, sir,
No, one time, good point you raise. These things, when you are doing a critical appraisal, do not creep into your appraisal process. He was my teacher. He was like this, like that. You have a clean mind to do
Okay,
that.
sir.
Don't bring that issue. Yes.
Okay,
Tell
sir.
me.
So starting from the title evidence of the presence of SARS-CoV-2 virus in atmospheric air and surfaces of a dedicated COVID hospital. It gives the idea. After reading the whole article, he has.
No, madam, you comment about the title.
Title is. Okay,
Are you happy? Is okay?
Not full.
Any,
okay. But
okay.
he could have.
Anybody? Yeah, you tell me then.
Sir, all
You said,
both objectives.
Can you justify?
Can
you justify the characteristics of an article? Is
sir,
it? Yeah.
It is actually reliable. The research question or the research topic on which the study is done. It is very relevant. First of all. Because it is the need of the hour, and a novel thing also they are trying to find out. Not only the presence of SARS-CoV-2 in atmospheric air and surfaces, but they are trying to find.
Madam, one thing, Manju, I need to stop to you. We are going in a systematic way, section wise. I am not asking you the whole this one. Others also, other 10 people have to speak. You comment about the title. That's all.
Title.
Okay. Do you have any means of defining the article title? Dr. Vidyavati, can you think of, suppose you were to be here, how would you have titled it? You have gone through the article. Title should be reflect the primary objective of the article. Title should be crisp, brisk. So if you apply those things, what do you think? Does it give you any indication of the type of the study? Nothing.
No, sir.
Sir, can I answer, sir?
Yeah, madam, please.
If I were to look, I will leave the words evidence of the presence. I would just link to presence of SARS-CoV virus in the atmospheric air and surfaces in a dedicated COVID hospital. I would have made it much more simpler because any study is looking for evidence. So this putting evidence of is a redundant thing. That is what I would have done, sir, in this.
So I agree with you. You know, a little more. What I would have made it to reverse one was to study, a study to provide Something like that also can be prefixed, study to provide evidence. Like that, you can see. And what he said is take out evidence. Yeah.
Can I speak?
Who is it? Yeah, please.
Pushpa, madam.
Study
You
Not
design
leave me.
should be mentioned in the title. It is not mentioned here. Whether
That's
they
what I'm
have
telling you.
studied this in vitro, in vivo, nothing is there. So
Okay.
that would have been a better title.
So you look for that, and we'll skip the author, other things, etc. Author's credibilities, etc. The research unit, prestigious hospital institution, they are there. Coming to the abstract, can anybody give me overall appraisal of the abstract? What kind of abstract it is?
Unstructured.
Unstructured, very good, yes. Does it give you a whole big picture of the article? What all is there in that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, done. So as regards abstract, it's fine, there is no problem. Now come to the introduction. Can anybody comment on the introduction that is given here? Yes, Mahalakshmi, somebody else has read, no? Others?
Yes, sir. One Dr. Gomati has read the article.
Yes. Any comment on the introduction? Yes.
Dr. Kalsad.
Kalsad sir.
Yeah, please. Yes, Dr. Prasad, very nice.
Actually, everybody can unmute themselves and speak. I have removed that option. I don't know.
Sir, in
Who is
introduction,
Gomati?
they have come
Yes.
out with the gaps in the literature review, sir. They are telling that there is difference in
Yes.
opinions in various studies that were done regarding the distance to which this, the virus spreads. Is it within 1 meter or more than 1 meter? So there is gaps in that knowledge. So to fill the
Yeah.
gap, they have planned these studies, sir.
So need for the study is justified.
Justified. Need for the study is justified.
Yeah, what are the negative points in the introduction you see? What are the things? Are there any unwanted information is given which is not relevant to the study?
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Sir, this is Gomadi, and
Yeah.
I feel that the review of literature is too little on the introduction section because the need they didn't state very much.
Yes.
They mentioned the reviews articles, but the need is really less when we think about the situation.
Okay, so they have tried to arrive at a need. One thing what I noticed here is, see the number of references they have quoted in the introduction section itself, there are 39.
39.
That is 39 references. How can that be? Not even 39 lines are there. Those many references they have put there, number one. And introduction should have necessarily 3 to 5 references, pilot article, something, 1 or 2 references for what is not known. Some will quantity what is not known. That kind of a thing has to be there. And according to me, some unwanted information, like angiotensin converting enzyme, receptor, cytokine, all these things are, I'm not telling wrong, they are wrong in the place here in the introduction. Those things are not needed. Here your issue is what? How the disease gets spread. So tell about the different methods.
About transmission,
Yes.
it's not in detail, sir. More
Yes.
on treatment and other pathophysiology is given in the
Yes, sir.
So those things should have not have been there in introduction. Okay. So on that issue, yeah, please.
Index case, why it was necessary to tell about index case and all? That was not necessary.
So that's why I used one general word, unwanted information is there and the irrelevant number of references are there. Fine, but very good. Now we'll straightway we'll omit the study side, we'll come to the study design. I want a very good comments on this. Study design, all of you had various types of studies yesterday and the day before. You tell me, comment on this. Study design.
So it is written, type of study is written in vitro study, that's all. They have not come out with, maybe it is in vitro, but I think they should add the words like it's a cross-sectional or...
No, they there are independent in vitro studies are conducted. That's what the discussion I was discussing with Arun also.
Okay.
That these studies are done in cases where you are not using directly human participants. We are
Yes.
using it is more used in cell culture and all those areas. So those are called in vitro study. Those are independent of.
No, from the patients only the samples are collected now.
But patients they have not collected from patients.
No, they are asked
No.
to cough and filter. That is how the methodology is
Yes, ma'am.
given, madam.
Just to identify whether they are active cases, they have used the patients.
Use the patients.
Only for that they have used patient, but actually they have collected the sample. They have not collected actually from patients this thing. They are collected viruses from the air. So it is in vitro and
from
they
the
have,
patients.
Yes.
they
Environmental samples are. There is no human
in vitro.
involvement in that.
There is.
Yes.
Okay.
So
So
that is
one, yeah,
only.
please.
Is in
So
vitro.
if we have certain reservations about the commenting on the study design, under the title of the study design, it is written that it is an in vitro study. No doubt they are not told why it's in vitro. Fine. Here it is a very tricky study in the sense no patient intervention is there. Even though they are taking sample to identify that the person is positive and all, that has nothing to do with the relevant here. In the sense, the samples are being taken only from the surface and from the air. So it's and can we think that it is an observational study? You are not doing anything. So the old patients are there presented to you, and you are taking the samples and you are trying to find out how it is spread.
In fact, I went through this thing, whether it is a case control study. For example, when we study case control studies, there we want to see association between various risk factors and outcomes like that. But here, then I went specifically for searching in vitro study. Then they said that this is a type of study where it is used only for cell culture and all. So that's what is there. But if at all we
So,
fit into observational,
Sir, I
think
can add it, sir. This is Dr. Ravi.
yeah, please, please.
So any underlying mechanism, if you want to study it in the cell culture, that is in vitro, we can say that it is an in vitro, sir. Otherwise, this one, as you said, it can call it as an observation with cross-sectional, sir. At the time point, we are observing what is happening. It is anyway, it's a human sample only actually, which is floating on the air. That's we are going to observe it actually. So it is an observational cross-sectional studies. We can add it up, sir. It is my
Observational, I agree, sir, but cross-sectional, I wouldn't agree because we are not studying all the patients. No, so they have taken one sample of patients and only that area. At this point of time, they are not doing a cross-section of one ward or one area of the hospital. No, so they have taken around 6 patients and then they have studied all those things, parameters, how much distance this virus has grown and things like that. So it is observational study. It is a form of descriptive study. But beyond that, calling it as cross-sectional study, I have a little bit this thing. You can say because it is performed outside, you can say that it is an in vitro study also. In vitro in vivo is not actually a study design. So it's only a technique where you have done that.
Yes.
See, basically, cross-section means at some point you study. Actually, you are not doing a prolonged study in the sense you are not. So basically, it is a cross-section observation study. Both are correct because at that point you are seeing how many had virus, how many did not have virus. So it's a cross-section observation study. That way, I think it's fine.
we are not studying risk factor here.
You think that? Sorry?
We are not studying risk factor also, like how it is transmitted depending upon the distance, 1 meter, 2 meters.
Risk factor is not included. They are only studying whether the
Whether
virus
it
is there, what
yeah.
distance, and analyzing.
So whether risk is involved in 1 meter more load and
No.
study
That is
that
not
way.
their study at all.
Sir, there is
It's
a message in the chat box from Arun Daniel. It can be called what ecological in vitro study under the broad descriptive observational study.
ecological in vitro study. Ecological study. I don't know. I have to see that. So this broader descriptive observational study. What I noted here is it is a observational and descriptive study. Say, and this ecological. Fine. Now we'll go to the next section. Yeah, about the ethical approval, the participants. It is not no kind of any intervention for the participants. Of course, they have taken the consent. Fine, that's okay. And coming to the material and methods, any comments, please?
Sir, this is Rakesh, sir. And
yeah, please.
with respect to the sample size, as Mahalakshmi ma'am said, 6 cases participants, but there is some confusion. They say 6 patients per day multiplied by 3, that could be accounted for 36. Did they do on the same patient, or did they take the new? They have not explicitly mentioned. That is the first concern. And the second is they have said they have collected the swab sample from the material that's on the surface. Is it immediately after coughing, or what is the time gap between that? And did they maintain the same time gap across the samples?
They have mentioned 6
15
patients, 48 hours prior who came positive, something like that.
And moderate cases have been included.
So these are some of the flaws you can say. They'll bring the heterogeneity, and the spread obviously depends upon the severity, how much of this virus the particular person is throwing in the atmosphere on the surface. Those things are there. And one thing here in the material methods is whatever they have used, you should have had a supportive evidence for that. They have while taking the air sample, they have said the airflow of 1.5, 16.7.7, 27 liters per minute and all. They should have had a proper references for that. This is what I noticed. Whatever methodology you are using, you should have references. And the air sampler was placed on the table cover, height of the patient's bed. Some things, you have to have references.
So can I add to Dr. Rakesh?
Yeah, please. Arun.
Actually, this is not the right word to use because they are not using humans. They are not using any humans here. The 6 patients, what they are using is to collect the environmental sample. And if they are using cough and within a stipulated time they are going to collect the samples, then they are going to test only if there is an effect of atmospheric pollution after the cough. Here their aim is not to do that. They want to see if there is a regular presence of atmospheric viral infection. And I don't think they have to make some time span between that. So, atmospheric air collection compared with the near surface.
Yeah, Arun, what you said exactly right. The sample size has no relevance to the study. Tell you in a broader way. Okay. And however you are here, you tell me what is that ecological you said? Ecological means what?
Ecological.
Ecology is environment.
Usually we make environmental correlations, sir. Some disease happens in America and some disease happens in India at the same time. We try to make some association between that. That is ecological studies. Events will happen in different places, but in the same time. So trying to make a correlation between those two.
When you say ecological, mostly you look at the community-based studies. This is actually looking at the virus traveling, how much distance. So it is not basically an ecological study. They are just looking at how much virus present, what is the distance they are traveling, like that. So when you say ecological,
subtypes. We have subtype in studies, actually.
Yeah, that is fine. But when you are not doing a community study, the ecological part probably does not come into the picture.
So here the patients are coughing, and specific time frame is also mentioned, 15 minutes. And that is put on a petri dish and within 1 feet from his mouth for 15 minutes. This has been specified, sir. So patient action is included here. How can we just tell it is an ecological study?
Also, I have a question, Dean sir. Suppose no, you said sample size discussion. It may not be relevant in this kind of study. Suppose they have taken from one patient only, or they have done a few measurements only, and then they want to come to a conclusion that it stays only airborne. It is there for 2 days, 3 days. Then it will be totally irrelevant. No, so still we need to look at sufficient number of things to make that it is generalizable towards all situations, no, sir, or at least in that hospital.
No, this sample size, etc., will be of relevance when you say when intervention and you are trying to find out an outcome effect of that. That kind of a thing doesn't exist here. Even though
So
patients
suppose
are
if they have done only one case, one measurement they have taken, and then they say that COVID does not remain in fomite surface, it remains only in the air, and they come to a conclusion. How can we validate that conclusion, sir? It has to be at least a section of the study population to say that, sir. I don't know what is the word to be used, but it still need that you need sufficient number of observations to make a claim that this has got meaning or not. No, sir.
Multiple exercises they wanted to do. That's why they have selected so many.
Actually, here they're
Ma'am,
putting an hypothesis.
Okay.
I don't try to prove or test some hypothesis here. So I think they're trying to find out if there is atmospheric presence of COVID virus when patients are there in a particular. They don't need a particular amount of patient or particular load. That and all comes next, madam.
Okay.
Ma'am, one more thing, ma'am, I have a doubt here. That is like when they do about study side, they told that atmospheric seasons they have mentioned, like 4 different seasons they have mentioned, but they have done it in one particular season. Does it also have the influence? It can also have which they have not justified.
They're all limitations. Limitations of the study. Even they have said the concentration of the patients in a square meter area of the ICU and a ward at all different. Those are all some of the limitations they have mentioned. I think we'll go now next to the discussion part, which is very, very important. And one thing is, they also must have, while writing, they also must have, because so many, how many authors are there? Half a dozen authors are there, not half a dozen, more than that. 15 authors are there. And they also must have thought, what is the study design? Then finally left it like that, what we are arguing. This is what I think must have done. And coming to the
one more
discussion.
thing, so this is
please.
So they use a filter, sir, actually. The filter size is around 100 nanometer. But the virus sizes ranges from starting from 20 nanometer to depending upon that, it will keep on increasing. So they are able to detect only the virus which is above 100 nanometer only. So which is less than that, which is start replicating or which start growing. So they can't able to catch those things actually. They missed out actually. So even though they know the size, they can choose a filter in an exact way, like a 10 nanometer filter also is available there. So these are the.
You are right, Ravi. That's why I said in the material methodology, what all they are using, they should have given a reference, proper references for that documentation. That was lacking. Now coming to the discussion, anybody can tell a couple of appraisal points from the discussion, how it is. Is it okay? Is it having any deficiencies? One thing is the results and discussion, both they have combined. You don't have any comment on that. It's okay. Sometimes we see some articles like that. Observations and results will be normally joined together and discussion will be separate. But anyway, results and discussions, they have did that. What is prominently absent here in the discussion? Even though they have references, except the one study, all 39 out of 39, only one is of 2006. Remaining all are 19, 20, 21. These 3 years only, more of 21. And there is a problem. They are trying to portray that nobody has done a study of this kind. Others, the workers, the results, they have not compared with them and all. And I specifically with this point, if you go through the references list, there are about a couple of studies which are of the same primary objective as them. They should have discussed their findings, reference number 25, 26, 27, 28. These are all something related to that. And they would have compared in the discussion part findings of those studies, which are quite relevant, appropriate, and related. That is totally absent in the discussion. Only they were just right? No comparison, the contrast. Yes. Somebody is trying to tell you something.
So they have come out with the limitations of their study, sir.
Yes,
the three
that is there.
limitations, which is very good thing because the others can continue the similar type of studies with new objectives. So that is one strength of this study that of this paper, sir. They have come out with their limitations.
Yes. And one more thing I remember now, what was the rationale of having patients something 18 years or something they have written? I really don't know. I understand that.
Above 18.
Above 18, sir.
Above it is. I try to find out the reason. It's okay, no problem. So in the discussion section, that is done. And limitations they have clearly spelled out. And whether the one good interesting
That's
thing
because pediatric age people will swallow, sir. They won't cough out. They swallow.
They also cough out, Vishal. Come on. Okay.
Not much,
Anyway,
there will be more swallowing only.
Yeah.
And another thing I want
And one thing, interesting thing is, yeah.
Table number 2. Is it really necessary to put whole thing on this? And
Yeah.
instead of that, they would have just analyzed it and they would have put. So it is just to extend the length of the article. 10 pages article, 11 pages.
Madam, not only 4, madam, table 2 also is like that. What is
That's
this?
what I'm telling. Table 2
Everything
only
is.
That shows the article was published by the journal in a hurry. Editor didn't have time to do that all peer review process. So as and when, COVID time, everything is right, get it published. So many things got published. Then the one thing, very important thing they have point out is that the strength is whether the, what is that? RNA is from the living or dead or something like that they have commented here. No? Is RNA detected are from live virus or from the dead ones? They have not been able to, that they have clearly spelled out. That means somebody must have gone there and some COVID positive patient left something. Then that's it. Now coming to the conclusions, are the conclusions commensurate with the objective? So the conclusions are not very pointed out, So it is for environmental air surfaces of the hospital and eating patients are contained with SARS virus, indicating potential airborne and surface transmission of. Right, that's it. Correct. One line conclusion.
So
And,
that particular distance, they have taken 1 meter, 3 meter. About that, they have not concluded anything.
Of course, that was not their.
No, they have not mentioned anything about that. Their aim was whether it is airborne, that is one thing. Another thing they wanted to know from 1 meter and 3 meter why they have collected them.
Yes,
they
you're right.
To know
So
that distance matters.
we come to the last part now. Can anybody comment a little boldly on the references? Because some of the issues we already addressed halfway through. Total number of references are 39. That is one of the important parameters when you are doing the critical appraisal. I already made one comment that, the increased number of references doesn't increase the validity. Okay. And I also commented that in the introduction section itself with 39 references. 2 to 39, something like that for one sentence. Those kind of things are there. And some of the references are which are quoted here have no relevance. That's why, probably many of you might be knowing. Annotated bibliography is many a times required. What points you have taken particularly from that article, which you have quoted, has to be there. So I will say overuse or inadvertent use of the references. That's one comment. Certainly, no doubt I can make that way. Any other thing? Chalo, Dr. Vidyavati, if there are nothing, we'll conclude the session.
Sir, the references they have quoted is whatever studies have been done for the past 1.5 years about COVID, they have quoted it here, sir. But what is relevant to this topic, this journal article is very little.
Yeah, that's why I said no, you use the word annotated bibliography. If you make them, so if any of the journals ask for the authors, you identify 3 annotated bibliography out of this big garbage. That's what they say. So then the real thing comes. They are just quoted. One statement in the introduction you must have seen, 28 to 30. One statement. 30. As of now, general notion is that virus gets transmitted either through droplet or through direct contact with the infected person. References from 22 to 30. Okay. So these kind of things. Anyway, it was a good exercise. We try to give some messages because they have some postgraduates are there. You would have had some hint as what has to be done in the journal. Thank you very much. So,
Sir, what was enjoyable about that experience now, sir, is that so many people came and actually they dissected the article like that. I used to think why they are calling it as independent peer review. So I thought you should not be influenced by anything. That's why I thought it was called independent peer review. If they put one committee and then give the paper to them, no article will ever get published in journals. I think that is what was very nice about the session. Thank you, sir. For
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You have one more session now?
Yes, sir. Actually, we wanted to discuss, sir wanted to discuss the pre-test item analysis with the participants.
Are there
Sir,
enough?
we'll go ahead. Enough people are, sir? Sir,
People
97 people are there, sir.
Okay, we will go through it. Maybe they are the interested ones. You are projecting the slides or
Yeah, I will project, sir. I'll project.
So,
Madam, start?
Yes, ma'am.
So, good afternoon to everybody. We had a pre-test, but I always tell same question paper should not be given to both faculty members and students because the students get more marks than the faculty members. So that's what happened. Not that everybody has fared not well, but there were some issues. So we are more used to ask questions, but not answer questions. That's what I want to say. But regarding this workshop, we will go through the analysis and also the questions so that post-test you will score very high rank or high marks. Dr. Mahalakshmi has done the analysis. I will just go question by question, and if there is any clarification needed, we'll answer. So the percentage we got is only 54%. The highest, you are able to hear me, no? 93%. And many, as I said, residents scored more than the faculty member, maybe because they were in a hurry or no way to answer the questions. Only 15% could score above 75, but you expect in the post-test more than 90% should have above 90 or at least 80 score. So we thought, why not give the answers this thing and go through. We'll rapidly go through because some of the questions are simple. Many of you have answered correctly. So the first question is on sample size regarded as a subset of samples yesterday, population. Yesterday we had a session on sample selection, how we go about. So correct answer, majority of the people have given that D is the correct answer. It is taken from the population. So, but it should be a correct representation of the sample. But I think around 50 people have given wrong answer. Going to the second question. Second question, next. So name of the conceptual framework based on which the research is carried out. So basically, we do the conceptual framework will be the research design. So the research design should be very strong on which you actually conduct a research. So out of this 92 people did not answer correctly. 77 people have given correct answer. So not even 50% could answer. So please remember that research design is the conceptual framework on which you carry out your research. So your research design should be strong, then only you can correctly carry out. Next.
Sir, the wrong answer is 92 plus 35 plus 26. Sir. So almost 150 plus people.
77 have only given correct answers.
Yes,
so
sir.
research design is the most important. In order to pursue the research, which of the following is the first and the priority requirement we have discussed. So the research question is the primary thing, the problem. So you should have a strong problem in your mind, then only everything will go. Based on the problem or the question, you develop the hypothesis, aims and objective, methodology. So basically everything comes from the research question or the research problem. And 128 people have given the correct answer. That is good. Next. So what are the conditions in which type 1 error occurs? Type 1 and type 2 errors, I think you must be knowing. Type 1 error is rejecting the null hypothesis when it is actually true. Whereas type 2 error is failing to reject the null hypothesis when it is incorrect or it is false. So the null hypothesis get rejected even when it is true will be basically, it is a, I think the answer is wrong for you. The null hypothesis get even when it's correct. That is the B is the answer. 99 people have got it correct. So these type of errors occur because our sample selection is not correct. Our methodology is some issues are there. Then you get you reject the null hypothesis even when it is true. So in your other words, your results are not really reflecting of what is happening. Next. Am I going very fast? The main aim of the scientific methods in the research is actually basically you are doing research because there is some confusion in your mind. So you are thinking whether this vaccine is effective, whether this drug is effective. Unless you give to some people and some people as controls, you will not really know whether it is effective or not. So many times it happens by chance and you will be thinking, yes, it is effective, but it may not be really effective. So the D is the correct answer. Research helps you in removing the spurious relations or what you are having in your mind. Very few people have got the correct answer. The 44 only could get on the total number. So whichever question, very few people have got concentrate on the questions. And statistics, of course, from Monday onwards it will be taken. But I will be covering those issues also. Next question. So the robustness of any scientific research project is primarily determined by what? So you have given research title, research duration, expenditure. Basically, it is based on the objective and the study design. So you have a problem, you have developed the objective based on that problem. Then you make a methodology which is robust to solve whatever problem or question you have. So majority of the people have got correct. 184 people have got correct answer. Next. So which one among the following statement is correct? So when you give multiple options, always you should see there could be multiple choice. In this one, almost everything is relevant. This research refers to a systematic activity undertaken to find out a solution. It is a systematic and logical, unbiased process because you may develop hypotheses, analysis, interpretation. It is also an intellectual inquiry. It enhances the knowledge. All of them are correct. So your answer should have been A, 77. 1/3 is correct. So select A as the answer. Next. All questions need to be validated before used in a research test. So the questionnaire, we had a session yesterday. So it has to be validated because sometimes it will be done in another country, another place, the language may be different, population may be different, or you might make a new questionnaire which need to be validated before administering, because what questions you put, what answers you will get, unless you validate it, it may not be true. Even after that, mistake can occur. I think majority of the people have given correct answer. Very good. Next. When you find a big green, I think people have answered correct. So now plagiarism. Plagiarism looks a similarity between one article and another published article. So we put in the plagiarism checking because now softwares have come. It is very easy to check. So even if it is 1% plagiarism, it is plagiarism only. But only thing is, sometimes they will accept some amount of plagiarism. Normally, about 5%, or some journals may say 0%. So a lot depends upon the journal and the editors how much plagiarism they could accept. But if you have taken from your own study, sometimes they may say it's okay. But even if you quote from your previous study also, it's plagiarism, because once published, there is a copyright issue, so it should not be repeated. That is it. So whatever amount of plagiarism is there, it is plagiarism only. Only 50 people have given the correct answer. Next.
Sir, can I add one thing, sir?
Yes.
The software looks at whether you have copied verbatim from one another article, already published thing. And the other thing which the software does is what is the style of writing. Okay, in one first paragraph you have written in the, let us say in the passive voice. And second paragraph you have quoted somewhere and then you change it into active voice. The way the words you use and the structure, sentence construction is also identified by the software, sir. It is not just only similarities which it is trying to copy, but it also looks at the structure of the thing also. That is how the plagiarism software works.
But we are talking about plagiarism. Plagiarism is copying from one place
That's
to
what, sir.
another.
The software looks at how much you have verbatim copied, and also it tries to see that if the cohesiveness of this entire sentence. That's why they ask you to paste at least 1,000 words, because the paragraph 1, the first 100 words are written in one style, and then the next 150 words are written in another style. That also is counted as kind of thing. That is how the article, the report comes saying that this is what 30%, 40%, and all.
What you are telling is right, but I am only looking at plagiarism. I am not looking about the style. Next, number 10. So variables which are differentiated only by name and not by measurements are called nominal variables. So I think that is a correct, and the majority of people have got it correct. So nominal and ordinal binary variable, different types of variables are there. Binary is when you get a two answer, yes, no answer, or this or that, like that. Nominal is serially you will get race or color or different type of thing. Whereas ordinal is the numbers, which you will get heartbeat, respiratory rate, or blood level, something like that. So nominal variables are by name. So it is true. Majority of people have got correct. Next. 11. Outcome variables are dependent variables in research. That's correct. Dependent variables are outcome variables. What you are looking at the result. So when independent variables are the one which you can change. In the sense, if the heat becomes more, what happens? If the heat becomes less, what happens? or if you do exercise, what happens to the heart rate. So increment variable is the one which you change, whereas the dependent variable is the outcome. If you happen this, what is the mortality, what is the increase, what is the decrease. So majority of people have got correct, but still 69 have got wrong answer. Next. Mean is appropriate summary measurement of express of non-normal data. It is not true. Mean is actually arithmetical mean. If you have 10 values or 20 value, whatever number, you add up all this and divide from the total number, then you get the mean value. So here also 104 got wrong answer. So it is not correct. Number 13. Next question. Sample size determination for estimation of parameter is based on precision. So one of the things which you look for sample collection is precision. So if you keep a higher precision for your study, the sample size will automatically increase. Majority of people got correct, but still 56 people are not given the correct answer. So precision is one of the thing. Other thing, of course, it also depends upon the difference between the variables. If the difference is very large, your sample size will be less. If the difference is less, sample size will be more. Next, 14. Correlation coefficient lies between 0 and 1 false. Actually, actually there is a mistake, I think. Correlation coefficient basically lies between 0 and 1. So when you have two variables, you correlate whether when one goes up or one goes down, the other changes or not. So you will get a value from 0 to 1. Anything below 0.5, if the correlation coefficient, then it may not be that significant. 0.7 and above, highly significant. 0.5 to 0.7 is significant. Suppose you have below 0.5, between 0.3 and 0.5, suspicious, or it may be mildly significant. Below 0.3 is almost insignificant. So this answer is wrong. So we will correct it next time. So it is true. Correlation coefficient lies between 0 and 1. Next. There is a mistake in the question answer. In normal distribution, mean, median, mode are identical. It's correct. So, but still 83 people got wrong. See, normally in human values, there is it will not be correctly distributed. Suppose heart rate, if you take, there will be some with 70, some 72, some 75, some 80, some 90, like that. So it will change depending upon the individual. So normally it will not happen, but if it happens, it is correct. I mean, if it is normally distributed, almost all of them have same value, then it will come in the middle. Here also 83 people have got wrong answer. Next. Chi-square test is a parametric test. So this parametric and non-parametric test. Parametric test is this t-test, student t-test. They are parametric. Non-parametric test like chi-square test you do. So here also 103 people got correct. 128 got wrong. So chi-square test is a non-parametric test, it's not parametric test. Next. So now comes the linear regression analysis used for explore independent factors associated with the outcome variables, which are categorical in nature. So it is wrong because it is not used for categorical variables, but it is. Hello. So this is again false, but the majority of the people have got wrong. So when you have a group of factors associated with an outcome, then you want to check which one is independently affected, which is doing because of the combination of the factors, then you do a linear regression analysis. So the statement is wrong. Next. All these statistical questions will be discussed again on Monday onwards. Which of the following is an advantage of a cohort study and when compared to case control study? There was a session on this. So in a case control study, it is a going back, so you cannot get the incidence. Whereas in a prospective study, in a cohort study where you are going to forwards, you can get the incidence. So the answer is B. Here also 77 people got wrong. Next. Which of the following true statement regarding the case control studies? So risk ratio can be estimated, but odds ratio is preferred. Exposure status of the controls should be ideally made. Controls represent the source of the population. Cases cannot be enrolled prospectively. So all these other statements are not correct. Only the statement that is controls comes from the same source of population. You take both cases and controls, how many are exposed or non-exposed, then go back and see what has happened. So look back. That is a case control study. So only 45 people have got correct. Majority of the people were wrong. So please correct. So I think after the session, majority of the people would have got the answer. Next. These questions are quite simple, but some of them are a little confusing. Case control studies are usually retrospective in nature. So it is correct statement, but still 102 people have given wrong answer. Always case control is a retrospective study. Some people use prospective case control, but many scientists do not agree with that. Epidemiology do not agree with the prospective case control study. So when it's a prospective cohort study, whereas case control is always a retrospective study. Number 21. Random allocation means recruiting patients into groups in a haphazard way. So this also many people have got wrong. There are two things that also I was telling. One is random selection and second is random allocation. Random selection comes in sample collection. So when you don't want to bias your selection, you may use a random number, either lottery number or you can put every fourth, every fifth, or in your OPD third patient you will allot, something like that. So that is a random selection. So random allocation comes in RCTs where you allot patients into 2 or 3 groups, whatever group you want. So there you don't want to get biased. Otherwise, what will happen? So this person is very well-known person. We cannot give this treatment. What you think? The scientist may have something in his mind, which is better, which is not better. So inadvertently, you may put him in the better treatment group. So it is likely to cause bias. That is why you take a number, either from computer or whatever way you want. And it could be a stratified random or it could be a serial random number. But whatever number comes, that group you will go. Suppose you have two groups, A and B. Number 1 comes A, it will go. Number 2 comes again A, you will go to A, like that. Suppose you need 100 samples, you keep 50 in one, 50 in another, take one by one. That also can be done, or you can use number. Okay, so majority of people got wrong. So please correct it yourself. Random allocation is not in a haphazard way. It is a systematic way. Next. Review of literature is important while writing the discussion. Definitely it's important, but it's more important when you are planning, because unless you do review of literature, you won't know what has been already done, as we are discussing in the publication just before this. So unless you know what has been done, what you are going to do. So your introduction itself will be based on the existing knowledge and the problem which you are going to test. And also, review of literature will help you in deciding a correct methodology, sample size, all this you will require review of literature. So it has to be done before you write even the aims and objective and methodology. So majority of people got wrong. So it has to be reversed in your next, so that you will have a p-value significant in the post-test. Number 23, study with the negative result cannot be published. So some people think always I should get a p-value 0.01 or 0.001, it will get published. It's not like that. So it depends upon what issue you have studied and how seriously you have studied, and based on that outcome. It is important to publish his negative results also, because if everybody says remdesivir is effective in COVID, everybody will say yes, yes, it's effective. But when you give, it does not work. Of course, there are adulteration and other issues are there, but still it may not be really working. So, or it, by chance it may be working because you have given them steroid, you have other drugs, it may be working along with that. So unless you have some negative result also, it is not that you have to publish negative result, but if it is there, you have to publish. It is your duty to publish whether positive or negative result. So next, sample size calculation is required while writing the proposal. Majority of people got correct, so we are not going to the discussion. All of you are sure that it should be done, but still some 19 people have got it wrong. So it has to be done while writing your proposal, because you cannot change your proposal later. You have to give correct. Next. Clinical trial register is required only for regulatory trials. So clinical trials are two types. One is regulatory, one is academic or non-regulatory. So what PGTs or what you do without any funding from others or some influence from others, that is called non-regulatory trials. Academic, they just want to see. Suppose a drug is giving in 100 milligram, you think 150 will better, then you will give 100, 150 for two groups of patients, check which is better. So that is called non-regulatory trial. But irrespective of regulatory or non-regulatory trial, now as per guidelines, we have to register with the Clinical Trial Registry of India, because any good journal will not accept unless it is registered. So you should register. So here also majority of people got it wrong. Next. Standard deviation indicates the dispersion of observed values around the mean value. That's correct. You get the standard curve. So as you know that if it is plus or 1, minus standard is about covers about 67% of observation. Plus or minus 2 will about 95%. Plus or minus 3 deviation, almost 99% of the observed values it will cover. So it basically shows how it is distributed around the mean value. Correct? Many people have got it correct. Next. But I am surprised to see some are wrong. So here 99 people have got wrong. If one does the study sincerely, the p-value will not always be less than 0.001. So it is not your sincerity alone which matters. Sincerity is important, but your methodology and the result what you are looking, based on that p-value will vary. Suppose if the difference is less, the p-value will be less. Less means the number will be more. The lower the value, it's more significant. So it is nothing to do with your sincerity alone. Sincerity is important. You have to do correctly the test. But more important is the actual difference. Suppose if there's a difference, it definitely, if you do it properly, you will pick up. 99 people have got it wrong, very, very bad. So we should improve. Next. Study participant need not be monetarily compensated always for participation. This is correct, but still 73 people got wrong. So every study participant need not be compensated. The ethical committee which decides whether it has to be compensated or not. Suppose a patient comes exclusively for your study and you are putting him in the problems like he may lose wages and other thing. If you admit him for 3-4 days for your study alone, then he has to be compensated for the loss, for traveling, then for his labor or employment, how much he has lost. All those have to be compensated. But if he is coming to the hospital for some other purpose, for his benefit, if you are including him, if he gives consent, there is no need to give compensation. because your service itself is a compensation for him. So you, in your patient information sheet, there's a column. You say whether it is compensated or not compensated. But study any problem occurs, that has to be compensated irrespective of whatever type of study. Whether even if you talk to a patient and he falls down and injures, that time you become responsible. During that study period, you become responsible. Next. Study research hypothesis should be based on the findings of the pilot study. No. So research hypothesis will be based on your question. You have a research question, then you put a hypothesis. Whether it will go in the right direction or left direction, up or down, whatever it is, you make a hypothesis. Hypothesis is a presumptive thinking. You think it will happen like that, but your research output may be the reverse of your thinking. It may not be in the same direction. Majority of people have got wrong. Sorry. Next number, last number. Retrospective record-based studies does not require ethics committee clearance. Here also 77 people have got wrong. Whether it is prospective study, retrospective study, you are talking to the patient, looking at the patient, whatever you are doing, human studies have to be cleared by ethical committee. Even if you are doing a retrospective anonymous study, still it requires go through the ethical committee, get clearance from them that waiver of consent. They will say, okay, no, there's no need for any consent because you are not disclosing the identity of the patient or you are not going to his personal detail. Then it can, suppose you have stored samples, blood, tissue sample. If you are, make it anonymous numbers and then you analyze for a future study. If you have taken consent from the people earlier for storing, then ethical committee will give clearance. So whenever you have an idea of storing any sample, you have to have taken consent at the time of collecting the sample from the participant. But you can tell them that whenever we use it, we will take ethical committee clearance. Any doubts or clarification? Any questions in the box? Any questions in the box? Or anybody wants to ask?
Sir. Sir, can I stop sharing, sir? I'll look at the box.
Yeah, you can stop sharing. We have answered all the questions. But
yeah,
I
sir, there are some comments. I don't know. Rakesh says, thank you, sir. This was new for me. I don't know what was new for him, but whatever was new.
For the pretest. We are not telling you that post-test will be same, but similar. So,
P-value can prevent publication bias. That is Arun Daniel's comment. I don't know.
What is it?
P-value can prevent publication bias.
No, it depends upon the publication. Actually, depends upon the reviewer. So, if the reviewer is mild and he is a very polite, nice person, he may say you alter this way, you this way, and then publish. If you have a p-value significant, then sometimes you get a doubt also whether it can really happen, because the other person may also know some science. So you will also check whether it can happen with the 0.001 or it will be very marginal difference. You will also have some idea. So it is not that it will act against publication, but many people are under the impression that the lower the p-value, more likely to get published.
Sir, there is a question from Jyoti Fula. Can correlation coefficient be negative value? Can it be from -1 to +1?
Actually, correlation coefficient will not go because the lowest is 0, upper is 1. So it will not go minus. So it will stop at 0 because so you draw a one x-axis, one y-axis, then you show a line. Normally, this line will not be very straight line, but the statistician will make it straight by using statistical method. So you will get a correlation coefficient. How much is the relation? When one goes up, one goes down, what happens? So if it is a negative correlation or a positive correlation, either way, it is important. Your curve will be there. So if it is minus or positive between 0 and 1, Either way, it is important in the sense, yeah, whether it goes up or down, either way, the relation that makes the difference. So whether they have any relation or not, that's what is checking. You have two variables. When one goes up, other goes up, or when the, so it may go downwards or it may go upwards. Either way, it doesn't matter. So in a way, you are right. If you are minus also is correct, but between minus or plus, it will vary between 0 and 1. I think I have
That's all,
answered
sir.
correctly.
No questions are there in the chat box, sir.
Okay,
I
sir.
think
Thank you,
they
sir.
must be tired after listening to so many topics, and number of people also may be less. But henceforth, I think we'll give 2 question paper, one for faculty members and one for students, so that no comparison will be there. Unfortunately, faculty members have scored less than the residents and junior faculty. Senior faculty have done less. This is a secret. We are not going to divulge. Dr. Mahalakshmi will give the marks independently, so nobody will know what marks you have got. You alone will know. And 66 people are present. So please tell others also about the question and discussion, so that they will get better correct answers in the post test.
But I think this was very enjoyable experience, sir, no? In the sense, this is what really research can translate in this. We keep talking about item analysis. When we see it in action only, it kind of drives the point for us. No, sir?
In British, what is the methodology workshop? Because
somebody is talking.
Ashokan. He wants to know what is the advantage of conducting research methodology workshop. That much only I understood. I don't know what else he said.
Then what?
I cannot hear his question.
I think he's asking if everybody scores very high in post-test, what is the purpose of conducting research methodology workshop?
Yeah, they should get 100% in post-test. That means they have listened either YouTube or not YouTube. See, Madam has put in the YouTube also. So those who have missed, you go through the YouTube sessions. Idea is to learn. See, some of you might be in the COVID ward. Some of maybe having some other issue at home, could not listen. But still, we want everybody to get the benefit. So those who could not listen, you sit at home, go through the YouTube at least, and answer correctly in the post test. See, everyone has to get certificate as per university, UGC accreditation. 100% people should have certificate. So certificate will be given only if you do pre-test, post-test. So please go through. Even if you could not listen here, you listen later also.
Sir, I have a response for Ashokan. We are nurturing teachers. We are not punitive teachers. Our job is not to punish people getting less score. No, we want everybody to get more score. So Ashokan will agree if we say that that is why we are doing. No, it's okay, Ashokan.
It's not spoon. He may be thinking we are spoon feeding. Not spoon feeding. This is actually stimulating their interest, in the sense we are giving some questions, some answers in addition to what has been discussed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you, madam. I think we can end the session.
Ma'am, feedback has been sent to all the participants in email. Please remind them to fill it up.
Kindly fill up the feedback forms and send it.
The next session is on Monday. Yeah. The next session is on Monday. We will be starting with statistics, and the team from JIPMER will be doing all the statistics sessions. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is going to be this thing. And a request to all the participants, since statistics will involve looking at a lot of spreadsheets and statistical tests and all that, it might be better for you to join through a laptop or a system rather than joining through mobile, because you may not be able to see very clearly what is being projected. So request for all participants to join through system on Monday. That is what tomorrow we will be having FFF, no research methodology workshop.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thanks for the comparing the session and
Thank you.
holding it together. Thank you. Bye bye. Sir, can I close
Thank you,
this?
sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'll save the chats and then I'll close.